will now go quick to the demo. This is a development system, so it's not like the final version of Business One, so hopefully it will work. What I would like to show quickly is the setup. So as I mentioned, there we have the system initialization, document settings, electronic documents. So we can see that there is a protocol. For the protocol, there is a definition of that the protocol is enabled, and there is information specifically. Some parts are specific for the PEPPOL, like participant ID or the VAT structure under which this participant is operating. Some information about the access point, the link, username, password. Also, for example, SAP access point in productive version, it works with the certificate. So it's possible to assign the certificate, I think, in PEPPOL format to the field, and then you can, this certificate is used then for the authentication. Some default values for the documents, for example, for this electronic documents mapping determination. Okay, this is one thing what I wanted to show. One more thing here, what I wanted to mention is that here is the setting which is important for the, let's say, when you are creating the whole mapping, or when there is some issue and you want to raise an incident to the support. It is for us helpful when there is an incident. You will generate this data source and provide this part of the incident, and it is better for us or easier for us to analyze what was reported and why it was not reported the way you expected or the customer expected. On the other side, as I mentioned, it is also useful when you create a mapping for a specific customer, because then also this file is used for the testing purposes. Normally it should be switched off because there might be stored in the data source some data which are not maybe dedicated for a specific user. So in normal usage it should be ticked out. Then I mentioned the PEPPOL specific codes. So we have the list. So as I mentioned, there's some parts are relevant for the document, some for the items. So for example, for invoice, we have some definitions put here in this database for the invoice type, also defined in the PEPPOL, and one of them is specified as a default value. Then if it is specified, then it is used for the document as such. Also important thing is that probably you are aware of it, but just to remember, so when you want to use electronic documents functionality, it is necessary that the numbering series specific for the documents which you want to use must be set as digital. So in this case, for this specific series, it is possible to create electronic document. If it is not selected, you are not able to create document as electronic. There are some setups which I would like to mention, let's say for the setup and specifically for the PEPPOL, because the PEPPOL or the UBL format requires many information which are used in the mapping file. So it's, let's say, federal tax ID, like tax ID used by the company for, in some cases, for the identification. There is, for example, the alias name used. Then also on the addresses, there is a possibility to use this global location number. This is also something what you may consider to fill in. And then also the electronic documents tab. If you want, or if you want for some specific business partner define specific information, specific handling, it is possible to do it via this form. Similar, it is for the items. So as I mentioned, there are like 2 new fields or 3 new fields displayed. One of them is country of origin. The field is the same as if you would use Introstat solution from Business One. So if in this case I don't have Introstat started, so I see only the country origin here. If I would have the same field is used also on the Introstat tab. And this standard item identification and commodity classification, the lists are available, are taken from the setup of the PEPPOL codes. So you can put here the information. Also, what is important is to specify either here the units of measure or to use the units of measure groups. And via this mechanism, specify the units of measure, because in the PEPPOL, in the UBL, it is required information. What is also used or required is that in the item management, there is a business partner catalog numbers. And this, from the BP catalog number, we are taking the value for the customer's identification of the item. So this is done the way. What we plan is that when we release the page level 2, we would like to also publish the mapping or the definition which we use for our format, which we will provide. And then it's up to you. You can either fill the fields in the system if it is missing, or modify the mapping to some other fields which you use for the specific customers. When we go to the documents, say invoice, and I will try to do some invoice. reference to some order. Let's say something like this. So you can see that the information are, let's say, taken from document, okay, but here are the fields which I mentioned. So the new ones: country of origin, standard item identification, commodity classification, units of measure you can see here, and then also, as I was presenting, the code for the document type, the default one is taken here, also the format, but the user can still change the format, change the type, and also change the document type in order to provide, let's say, to create the document in a way he or she would like to do it. So we can put something here, add the document. Okay. And now I am going to the electronic documents monitor. In the monitor for the PEPPOL protocol, you can see, for the protocol of the electronic documents, you can see PEPPOL, it's already selected. There are some view types. I will try to put more documents. Okay, the document which I created is just okay. You can see some identifications which are, I'd say, for the internal purposes or for these processing purposes, but in some cases it might help to identify if, for example, there is some incident, it is possible to identify for specific document what was the issue. Here you can see some view types to somehow distinguish between documents, also based on the status. You have some filtering options, dates, auto refresh. Here is the information about that electronic document processing status. It is like it is information about backend, so it is active and running. And here with this button you can do some actions. So now I have only import export, but if, for example, you have documents in the generation type generate later, you can then generate, or you have an error, you can regenerate the document directly from the monitor. Okay, now quickly back to the purchasing side. So as I mentioned, now there is available electronic document import wizard, which is not only for PEPPOL, but in this database I have only PEPPOL activated, so I have protocol here. I can either use the web service or XML file. So for the example, I will use only the XML. Here it was on the presentation, I have possibility to define for a specific document with definition of some XPath for the identification of document type and business partner, and defining of to which field it should be compared to. You can use the import format if you change it, or if it is different from maybe for some business partners, you are able to adjust it. Also, there is some additional selection criteria, so it means that system is checking whether, for example, if you specify vendor code, whether the documents which you want to import are only for the specific code, and then for user, it will only those which are matching the codes here will be processed. You can also filter the document types which should be handled. As I mentioned, we support mainly invoice, credit memo, down payment, but we provide also option for the, let's say, purchase orders, goods received on the AR side, also delivery and sales order in order to be processed. But for our access point, this is not supported. Okay, so quickly I have prepared some documents just to explain the functionality. So when you select some document or you will download some document, system is taking the documents and doing some parsing and analysis. So first of all, the validation is whether this business partner with this tax ID is in my system. If not, it is not possible to create documents. So there might be definitely some business partners already in the system with the relevant tax ID. So then I know that, okay, I can really create a document. There is an information about, okay, what is the document type, but also whether system found some match. So it means that, for example, in this case, there was in the file, there was a reference to the order, but the order was already closed with this GRPO. So system found, okay, for this invoice, there was an order, but it's closed, and so now it will be based on the invoice will be based on the GRPO. For other cases, for example, here it's just the purchase order. So we can see that the purchase order is the source document. There are highlighted the differences. What is also possible that, for example, in some specific cases, for example, if you have the invoice with the down payment, or you have invoice with some specific definition which is not maybe covered in the XML, you are able to create document in Business One, and then when the file is being imported, you are able to select and to match. So manually match this document in Business One, this AP document is matching the XML which is coming. So normally there should be one-to-one relationship between the files coming and the document in Business One. So when I go next, system is creating the draft. For the last one, there is already a document, so there is no draft, there is just document matched. Accept it, and now I go to the monitor. I can see that for some documents there were drafts created, for the last one there is already AP invoice, so not the draft, and now there is a match between the electronic document and the file which was imported.